Sorry with this crowd. So I want to welcome you all to a poetry reading in the afternoon by Kirkland alumni. This is the first in a series of virtual events that will be held leading up to what is the All Kirkland reunion. Of course, we're hoping that one will be in person, not on Zoom. That will take place June 10th to the 13th, 2021 on the Hill, as I said. And we will have another virtual poetry reading with alumni, and that will take place. We just set the date on Tuesday, June 23rd, but we'll be letting you all know about that, and probably the same time. So I'm Jo Pitkin. I graduated in the class of '78 from Kirkland, and I want to thank this whole reunion committee for reaching out to me and asking me if I would organize a poetry reading. I also want to thank Sharon Rippey and the Hamilton Alumni Office for fully supporting this and walking me through the Zoom world a little bit. So that's really great. When Liz Horowitz actually asked me if I would do this reading, put it together, you know, I was, of course, thrilled. And I want to tell you the 3 reasons why before we get to our readers. First of all, like I'm sure all of you, I've been sort of sheltering in place here in the Hudson Valley since early March. So seeing all of you, I think it would have been overwhelming without the quarantine, but it's even more so now. And I have to say, it's lovely to see so many wonderful people, names and faces I recognize, and I think it's great. So thank you for doing this with me. The second reason is in the spring of 1975, I took Intro to Creative Writing with Bill Rosenfeld. The class was in the womb room, which some of you remember. It was very claustrophobic. But that workshop changed, literally, I think, changed my life. And that's why I'm speaking to you all here from here, my home office, where I work as a freelance educational writer. And also this is where I have to say, I make a lot of my poems still today. So I think that that really was a motivation for me to bring a lot of you together, because that workshop really meant a lot to the course of my life. And that brings me to a third reason I was really excited to do this. And some of you have heard me say this so many times, you're sick of it. But Kirkland was one of the earliest colleges to offer undergraduates the opportunity to major in creative writing. For that matter, it may have been one of the earliest colleges to offer workshops without a major, but it certainly was, to my knowledge, and Nancy Dafoe will tell me if I'm right, but it's also the only college that offered women, solely women, the chance to major in creative writing. So I really do feel such a deep connection to the readers you're going to hear in just a minute. We all, as young poets, began our individual journeys in the Mohawk Valley of all places. And we share a distinction in being the first generation of undergraduates who pursued our writing in an academic setting. I don't know what that we can teach the younger generations, but I think even at Hamilton, they didn't realize that Hamilton students took our workshops but weren't able to major in creative writing until after the merger. So we've certainly done some good things as writers on our own, but I have to say I still, and most of you know, I mean, I have books here, I have your books. I follow your careers, I read you guys online or in print, and I derive inspiration from you in ways you don't even know. And I'm hoping that today, this afternoon, that the people who are listening here on Zoom will feel the same way. So I'm going to start with the first reader, and I'll just introduce her briefly, and that will be Nancy Avery Dafoe, who's from the class of 1974. Nancy's a writer and educator. She's currently writing full-time and living in Homer, New York. She has 9 published books, including poetry, literary murder mysteries, memoir, and nonfiction on writing and education. And she's working on a memoir about her son. So please welcome Nancy Avery Dafoe.
I'm working on
Okay,
unmuting.
I got it.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Good afternoon, everybody. Just briefly, I did want to mention that I lost my son in September, and I chose these poems somewhat as a reflection of going through what I've been through. The first one is called Returning to That Mineral State, and it does appear in my poetry book, Poets Diving in the Night. Something about a stone, a stone, a stone. When my nephew set little colored rocks on marbled gravestone that marked where my brother lay, it wasn't a tradition I knew, but one I found comforting. So I continued to bring him white quartz, red veined granite, from shores near our cabin, where I find myself still searching for stones, musing on philosopher's stone, then thinking of past imploding tents, as we kids smash shale slabs, peering inside the break, mysteries of creatures and days before man, before mammal. We press our fingers into indentations, feeling ridges left by shells, harboring secret lives. And it seemed then that a stone could talk, too. When I met Samuel Beckett's Lucky, I was no longer a child, but not as old as Lucky, with his long, flowing white hair falling about his shoulders after they robbed his hat from his cold head, after he opened his mouth and an abode of stones fell out, a stone silence, an inarticulate rock, suggesting language had no place to rest, until I read that young Beckett took stones home, saving them from wind and water. Only later did he link stone with bone. 3. Carrying smooth black pebble in my pocket for luck, I rubbed it long, remembering my brother, watching me skimming a stone across surface, breaking tension. 4. I find I fit inside a W.S. Merwin stone poem, recognizing Beckett and Shakespeare and Kenyon and O'Gara, and so many others in this layered land of stones. Images of stone and Eliot's Dead Land, that hollow land, and at Margot Berdyshevsky's Between Soul and Stone, where we stop in this dense abode, turning it over and over in my palm, this stone that could take our worry, mark our dead, record our time, skips and slips across waters, and I witness until all that is shown is a stone, a stone, a stone. My second poem and last is Sometimes Loss Weighs Lightly, and it is from my poetry book, Innermost Sea. Sometimes loss weighs lightly. Absence of hummingbird nest from thinnest of pine branches overhanging porch, where if I sit quietly, she would seem to spontaneously appear, hover near my face, dart sideways, then settle onto lichen and spider silk nest. 2 chicks, spike bills straight up like blackened toothpicks, jabbing air until she arrived and offered bounty. Absence, nothing at all like the time I gathered photographs of my father who lay in his coffin. I congratulated myself on how I'd held it together until I picked up his Syracuse cap. Nothing at all like my brother's deepest dive from which he did not return, or the way I felt when the sheriff had to break windows in my aunt's house to find her body, or my mother mouthing words no longer hers. Absence, nothing like the moment my son did not wake. Nothing whatsoever like his shoes in the entrance he would never walk through again. 2 summers, the hummingbird had come and made her nest in my tree, but I haven't seen her since, even if I waited patiently all day and night. Sometimes loss weighs lightly, but it always weighs. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Nancy, so much. And the next reader will be Gwynn O'Gara, who's from the Kirkland class of 1973. Gwynn's the author of Snake Woman poems and the chapbooks Fixer Upper, Winter at Greenhaven, Fruit of Life, and Sea Cradles. For 25 years, Gwynn worked as a California poet in the schools and served as Sonoma County's Poet Laureate from 2010 to 2012. Please welcome Gwynn.
Hi, everybody. So glad to be here. Thank you, Joe, for bringing us together. Nancy, always good to see you. My first poem is a poem of now. It's called The Season of Oxymorons. In the midst of the pandemic lockdown, the beautiful spring day sings through the leaves. Grateful to taste the cream in the milk, I muster the will to let go. Socially distant, together, apart, the bunny who lays eggs and the angel of death, mask of goodwill, virgin forest TP, wasp nest in my head, picking up the phone. Wet leaves and dark clouds whisper, summer. The virus will rest this summer? Will I? The bees keep going back to sleep. I put on my armor to grocery shop. I haven't seen the sky this blue in years. Is there a vaccine for lack of compassion? Every day, uncertainty's fresh. In a land of too much, it's hard to gauge what's enough. The poppies blink, the old aunties. People discover birdsong and crow, howling with neighbors I haven't met, and dogs. What keeps me sane? I don't know if your county or neighboring towns or people howl, but we howl every evening at 8 p.m. And howling is really good thing to do. I recommend it. All right, before I went to Kirkland, I lived in Mexico a few years with my stepfather and mother, and this poem, these next poems started in Mexico. It's called Toluca to Tacuba. Kicking pyramids of bananas and jute bags stuffed with beans, babies in coarse wool crawl, leaning on crates of clay idols and bowls. Shepherds peel frothy mangoes and husks of steaming cornmeal. Shawls brimming with oranges, pork rinds, and sweets. Mothers barter. I sniff manzanilla picked by a witch from the dirt of her village, while grandkids gather slivers of bottles and foils for toilet roll kaleidoscopes to sell to bus riders stopping for a drink or a piss. Giant red seeds, pod rattles, sour buds, a curtain of charms strung along wire. Scarlet petals arouse love, deer eyes attract luck. Bone powder mends bruises, striped gourds bring children. Brown nuts give strength, thick roots foretell death. Blue moss kills without pain. While rock woman stares, her son flirts. Mushrooms, pink heather, smooth cactus, gray fruit, white-haired women with sheep crossing streams, clanging bells, yelling to trees. I bought a stuffed hummingbird, soft, small, and brown, in a rough satin case, with a prayer to the Virgin and Spirit of the bird for protection against theft, rape, and fear. Her stem-like bill bends and sucks my murmurs. She warbles with doves, circling lava hills at dusk. Over the valley, she hovers while gamblers and dancers gulp tequila and rub backs knob over knob. And a one-eyed thief rants in an alley, and an old woman with pockmarks and swollen ankles inches her cart past lovers pressing together against a door. This poem is Girl with Head on Fire. When I was a teenager, we rode slow buses to markets with caged birds, medicinal bones, and fool's peyote. We bargained for roots, difficult to peel as rocks, so bitter we retched. I stared into candlelight with two friends on Tuesdays, after school, among bookcases. The younger one fell in love with our hostess's son, and within a year left her Mexican husband and kids. I ate the flame. The fire I swallowed melted the onyx in my heart. The mother of shadows took over my raising. I learned to travel the dark and hold on to my body. Sent to boarding school in New England, I found Tufu and Rexroth waiting for me in a snowdrift. Back in La Capitale, the lovers rubbed their sticks together, my friend alone in her library of flames. In Paseros and La Zona Rosa, stony fields and Central Park, my mantra raged, let go, let go, let go. And my last poem starts with an epigraph from Frida Kahlo. My cells, which are my stars. We who dream know there are no borders. Spring Lake, Santa Rosa, California. Haloed by redwoods, a vulture sky, and plump, comical geese, the soul body of Guadalupe shimmers. North on our backs, around our necks, in our skin, snuggled in suitcases, constant in cages, flowing underground. September's feathered heat and bountiful barbecues. Tunneling cold tickles our legs through the water's healing massage. Girls and boys play fight for swan, burger, and unicorn floats. Reborn in dream water, lovers cradle one another. Kids scream. Late afternoons, a breeze from the Pacific. Geese gabble in, splash down with cartoon faces. Without wings, we made it. Lost a few, lost a lot. Among thorns, roses, taco trucks, vineyards, hoodies woven with sweat and song, spirit water blessings, fresh, sweet miracles. We who dream know there are no borders. Thank you. Thank you. Very nice to be here. Thank you. Thank you.
You know, I should mention that Gwynn is in California. I'm looking at Barbara Burson, who's in Toronto, and we're all over the place, aren't we? But what I haven't spotted is Donna French. I hope she's here. Has anyone seen her on a screen somewhere? Donna French McCardle.
Joe, I'm really sorry I couldn't open that file and I just got in about 5 minutes ago.
Do you want to take a breath? I'll skip to Victoria and come back to you. Okay.
I would love to listen a little bit first.
I know the feeling, Donna. I have spotted Victoria Kohn Michels on the screen, so I know she's here. Victoria, Vicky was class of 1980, so she was in that really troubling time. That 79 and 80 and 81 bunch, right? Vicky was the editor of Hamilton's literary magazine, Red Weather, from 1979 to 1980. Their lovely chapbook, Thieves of the Mind, was published by, I had to say this because some people don't know Peter Cameron, but Hamilton alum Peter Cameron's Shrinking Violet Press. Vicky's poems were included in Under 35, the New Generation of American Poets, and have been published in the Innisfree Poetry Journal, Hanging Loose, and other magazines. Please welcome Victoria.
Oh, am I unmuted?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Just checking. Hi, everyone. I don't know why, but I feel very nervous, but I also feel really inspired by the two writers that we just heard. And I'm thinking, Joe, I don't know, there may have to be an anthology volume 2.
How to do.
I'm not sure. Okay. And then just really briefly, I mean, it was a really, difficult time in 1980 or, my freshman year to have things taken over. But I also actually like being part of the bridge. I mean, even though I feel a little guilty in like a Kirkland event that, oh God, I actually graduated from Hamilton. But it's nice to be part of the bridge, and I think it's really great that Sharon Ripley and others have been really dedicated to keeping what was so great about Kirkland alive. So just wanted to say that. Okay, so I'm risking some new work, so here it is. Sorry. Lost instructions to my life. I went looking everywhere, under stones, in tall green grass, under white shells, wet with sea spray, in the grains of sand breezing out of my hand, like ashes floating to a resting place, warm dunes or freezing sea. In each grain of sand, I listened for the clarion, there, where the sky burns yellow, between darkening clouds. The black onyx necklace has a history you cannot know, for now it rests against your lovely neck wherever you go. Before I burned old me, I knew I would never find anything or anyone, not the yellowest moon or the steadfast sun, to fill these empty halls. And this is called, I know it's a little hard to read, and I don't know, it probably looks like I'm looking off to the side, but I guess we're all learning how to read on Zoom. I don't know. This is called We Can't Regret the Things We Haven't Done. I didn't tell you not to go to our father's hospital room in Palo Alto when living 3,000 miles away might make it the last time. I didn't tell you there were pornographic pictures on his wall. I didn't keep you from seeing him with a lonely lie. I didn't tell you not to open the reconciliation letter he wrote me. I didn't sit by and say nothing as he downloaded a cheap-ass will. I didn't send you an email while you were in Costa Rica with the subject line, "Dad passed away last night." I didn't fight with our sister about the will before we even decided whether to cremate him or stick him in the ground. California, New York, he left no instructions. I didn't lie about the sale price of his Corralitos trailer. I didn't skip probate. I didn't put all Dad's money in my own bank account. I didn't sit on a couch with our 90-year-old mother and when asked to put some bills aside for her, fail to say yes. I didn't let you sear yourself. So, dear old Dad, you've done it again, you bastard. Even in death, you're the center of attention, a wildfire chewing ferociously on grass and trees and homes and bones and lives. I didn't say when I was 6 and you were 3 that it would be okay if Mom died because I would take care of you. I didn't break you. And I didn't rob you of the ritual of goodbye, bastard or not. And the last one, on a little lighter note, one second. This is just a little form called a triolet, which is actually a difficult little form because you have to repeat one line 3 times and there's a certain rhyme scheme. And the whole thing is only 8 lines. So it's tight. And the only other thing I should say is that there's some words from a song that no one would really be familiar with unless they were my daughter's age or younger, and she's 21. But this is called My Pandemic Dancing Queen. My pandemic dancing queen races her dad up to the roof, classy, bougie, ratchet, hip supreme. My pandemic dancing queen teaches TikTok silky moves, creates a dad meme. He'd do anything for her. Here's the proof. My pandemic dancing queen dances with her dad up on the roof. That's it. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vicky, I haven't even tried that form myself. That's awesome. I love that. I haven't. I've had it on my mental list of to-dos, you know. I just wondered, I mean, I'm just going to say one thing, but as I'm listening, I'm not putting anything in the chat thing, but it's so interesting that I've heard the word onyx in at least 2 different poems, hummingbirds, death. Well, okay, that's probably pretty universal, but I'm just enjoying the commonalities of imagery I'm hearing. That's pretty neat. So I don't know, Donna, you still want to wait a little bit, just, or you feel ready? What do you think?
I'll let you choose. I can do it. I can wait.
I'll introduce you, okay?
Okay.
Donna French McCardle, Kirkland class of 1976, is a writer and elementary school writing coach north of Boston. Her poems have appeared in the Kirkland anthology Lost Orchard and in literary magazines including Wilderness House, Literary Review, Prairie Schooner, and Antioch Review. Donna holds an MFA from the Writers Workshop, as I do, and I followed her there. And I have been following her ever since. I love your work, Donna, and take it away.
Oh, thank you. I have 2 poems. One is fairly long. They are about each of my grandmothers. So rather than talk about them, I'm just going to start. The first one is my father's mother, and it is called Her One Story. She took her dresses, separated with tissue and layered in a box, 5 pairs of slightly worn shoes, her brush and mirror, and the winter coat she would sleep beneath in the desert on cool nights after the sweat from the day had drained the heat from her body. She left her 2 teenage sons with her mother, kissed the 3, turned away. She left the piano that in earlier years she used to teach dancing to the girls in the neighborhood, only a girl herself. Those days, those movements, that beauty just a memory. She left that memory. She left behind her sister's grave, her brother's grave, her father's grave. She left the fog rolling across the flats and socking in the outer edges of town. She left the shame of watching her boys grow up poor, of hand-to-mouth jobs. She remarried, and she left these. They drove west through New York to Niagara Falls, across the Mississippi, west to Sioux City, where he was to train at the airfield and where they were separated by the flooding Missouri River that split the city and kept her husband on the other side. Where the water rose and then subsided, she took in the young daughter of her husband's army friend who had been trapped across the river too. For 3 days I had a daughter, she would tell it, a newlywed hungering for a new family. They left Iowa and cut south across the plains into New Mexico. As the days heated, they cranked down all the windows, and in the rush of air, their belongings rattled and buzzed. His dog squeezed by her to lean out, and her cat climbed to the center of the hood to sit like an ornament, its fur swept back by the wind. Each day with her new husband peeled away the taunting cruelty of her first. She thrived off this movement and arrival, off the touch of her new husband's hands and the feel of his skin in the heat, off her surprise each morning she woke next to him. Now her world was rich, and driving through, she earned and spent those riches in a single pass. They drove Route 66 through the Mojave to a trailer park in San Bernardino, arriving exhausted, where she fell asleep naked in a small trailer with no curtains and on a mattress with no sheets. Next morning, she woke to a neighbor peering in. He whispered, "Hi, beautiful." She screeched and grabbed her lightweight sweater, which had no chance of covering her because she was a large woman, almost 260 pounds back then, dashed into the tiny bathroom and giggled. for freedom like this was absurd. Years, generations later, she whispered to me, I wasn't used to intimacy. It was a different life. These were days of luxury, long and easy, with no job and no debt. Mornings of coffee sipped with canned milk, of watching other military wives pack their husbands to the base and kids to school. Afternoons of laundry cranked through a shared wringer, the cool water dripping around her feet onto patio bricks. Of idling back past trailers to her clothesline tied between two trees and held up with a tall, notched pine board. Evenings of braiding her long, dark hair, pinning it around her head, of lantern light and canasta with neighbors on a card table set outside. As night fell, of an emptiness through the mountains and desert sky, of the hum of the kerosene lamp. And the second one is my mother's mother, and it's called Knitting Sample. Her fingers on the yarn, the needles, my fingers. She adjusted with small movements the stitches we cast on. My grandmother wanted me to know the rights, to reveal the patterns of our lives in the way you wrap yarn into a scarf worn against a cold morning, against a season of cold mornings. She needed to show me how you twist and pull warmth into your life once you understand the raveling and weaving. Once you trust the yarn, the story emerges. A day, then a month, then a life emerges. She left me alone to it, and I sat there, yarn in my hand, fantasy in my head, cautiously forming loops, tapping needles, watching out the window as a wild bird land on the picnic table and a boy next house over pumped hard on his swing. When my grandmother came to check on me, the knitting was a mess, a tornado of holes from stitches dropped and extra loops knotted over each other. She counted in disbelief. Giving 10 stitches, I ended with 17. While she saw only flaws, I loved that wild tangle of my first creation. Then, because there was no yarn to waste, my grandmother pulled out each stitch. They slid apart to her tug and popped slightly before the tension gave and the yarn fell limp. My creation would not be delivered to the world. My neck and ears would suffer the chill of cold mornings, and I began to learn the workings of the pattern I would follow for many years. Attempt and dismantle, come home and leave again, find a way and lose it, wake and fall into a deep sleep and dream of the squeak of that boy's swing and the bird flying away.
Thank you.
For those of you who are like me, I always think I need to read stuff instead of just listening, but you can read that poem of Donna's on sixfold because I read it a few weeks ago, Donna, and I loved it. So
Thank you.
You can find Donna's work. That was just the winter issue, right, of the
Yes.
sixfold?
Yep.
Sixfold, I'm not being very articulate, yes. Wow, I've had goosebumps this entire time. They aren't going to go away, I'm sure, for a while. Just hearing all of your voices again is such a treat. And another treat is we're going to hear it from Elisabeth Weiss Horowitz, who's also class of 1980. Liz is an English professor who's published poems in London's Poetry Review, Crazy Horse, Birmingham Poetry Review, Patterson Literary Review, and many other journals. Liz won the Talking Writing Hybrid Poetry Prize in 2016 and was a runner-up in the 2013 Boston Review Poetry Contest. Her beautiful chapbook, The Caretaker's Lament, was published by Finishing Line Press in 2016. And I just wanted to mention that Liz, Donna, and I spent really fun times at the Massachusetts Poetry Festival in Salem. So we've actually seen each other within the last 20 years or so. Those were just a couple of years ago. And the other thing about Liz and I, Liz actually told me we both have poems in a magazine that came out in April called Mom Egg Review. And Liz also informed me there's a third Kirkland alum in that issue, which I find astounding, and I bet it's a record. I don't know of any other magazines where you'd find 3 Kirkland alums. But anyway, without further ado, Liz, take it away.
One is yeah.
Okay.
Am I unmuted? Okay, great. Thank you, Joe. So I'm just going to read hopefully a few short poems, and they're mostly narrative. The first one is about teaching, about working with refugees, which I do, and also surviving New England winters. Pet sounds. I'm listening to the Beach Boys and cutting out words my students will shape into poems. Mottled gray clouds move eastward. A gull dips and disappears. There are flash flood warnings again, splintered paths of havoc. As the sky darkens, it's harder to see. The grapevine crawling over my back fence from the neighbor's garden. Clusters of swollen fruit withered before I picked them. Isn't that the way of things? Too busy to notice what grows without coaxing. I guess I just wasn't made for these times, Brian Wilson sings. He was bullied as a kid and his dad smacked him around, which is why he is deaf in one ear. This morning, the sun brightened up the rain just as we sang in playgroup, where I held the hand of a 1-year-old and listened to the baas and neighs of barnyard animals entering her lexicon. He was a genius at harmony, even though he heard voices. He made things go from not existing to existing. I have to trust what was given to me, the dark spools settling in my chest, even when I can't find words to plant my weight back on earth. The next poem was written about the time of fall 1991 when the perfect storm occurred here. Some of you might remember that. And it references that, also about being ill. The weight of air. The first summer I left my sweaters out. Quickly moving squalls wrecked coastlines and altered maps. No one was without risk. Roof shingles blew off, trees bent in microbursts. Then the Andrea Gale sank, drowning her crew of 6. A therapist massaged my hands, warmed up the paraffin, called it barometric pressure. The weight of air washed up whole fleets in downward sail inside my body's curvature that endless blustery season. Nothing could bring my hands back from ulnar drift, not drugs or love or the sound of my own children singing. At dusk, I collected sticks, built a bonfire on the beach while stars lit a path and the moon pulled the tides closer into the pit as if they said, I win, I win. The next poem is a little bit of a tribute to Boston and the Isabel Stewart Gardner Museum, if you know that, and in memory of my father. The night we went to the Gardner, Kane unsuited to your style, but necessary, there was a late hour cocktail party. You can just leave me here to watch, you said. All the pretty girls you admired clicked their stilettos on Spanish tile, surveying the courtyard in their sparkling barrettes and charms that living gave. Later, the band's jazz floated from garden to gallery as you traipse past the stone sarcophagus to study works of art, as if Isabella had just gone to bed and left you in the drawing room to make yourself at home among the frescoes and chalices. You marveled at the lessons taught. To know John Adams' hand wrote a letter that your eyes read brought you greater joy than Europa. Your favorite exhibit marked the heist, blank frames on the wall of paintings never recovered, over which you shook your head, then researched far into the night when your insomnia became a waste of time for a story that could not fade or be laid to rest. And that is so true. My dad was so happy to walk in on this 20-something cocktail hour when I took him to a museum one night, trying to, just keep him entertained. And he was like, yeah, go ahead, look at the art. I'm fine here. The next poem is for all of you. I've never showed it to anyone or shared it with anyone. And I don't know if it's finished, so you can let me know. But well, I'll try it, whatever. It's called In an Apple Orchard. And it's for all of you, Kirkies. So, I was schooled in Bachelard's Poetics of Space in an apple orchard upstate. In the field outside my dorm, an upright piano in flames sang of Galen's humors and the poetry of Erasmus Darwin. I scribbled a fire sermon on Joyce's Dublin, lived in high pitch, cut my teeth with finger snaps in the carpeted womb room and circular motion on the rock swing. I pored over worksheets at the village tavern as if they were Pound's manuscripts locked in a humidity-controlled room in Burke Library. You who voiced my hammers by loosening the felt fibers of my being, you who broke my strings at midnight in Root Glen under a full moon, you on skateboards in nightgowns and velvet-collared vintage coats, I remember you. I remember the tart smell of the cider mill, the floorboards wet and clinging with ferment, the air above the bakery next to the fire station filled with the scent of warm cinnamon bread, embers rising long after we left. Thank you.
Wow. And I bet you Jake's Bakery hasn't been in a poem before. That everybody knows Jake's of a certain age, I know.
Yeah.
Whoa, wow. Can you please send that to me
Sure.
after all this? Thank you. I believe before we hear our last reader, I just wanted to make sure I get this right. I'm looking at Emily, but I think Emily's sort of looking at, I think if you have some comments or questions, I think we'll have a little bit of time for that. So use the chat function, and Emily will try to, I think, field some comments or questions to us. Is that right? Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
I'm so taken with the poetry, I'm forgetting how this all works. So our last reader is Abigail Wender. Her debut collection of poems is going to be published by Four-Way Books in fall of 2021, and that book is, I love the title, Reliquary. Abby matriculated in the class of 1977 at Kirkland, graduated from the New School, and earned an MFA from Warren Wilson College. And her translation of Iris Haneke's award-winning novel, The Bureau of Past Management, will be published by V&Q Books in Berlin for the United Kingdom and Irish markets, also in 2021. And Abby, I should just remind you, Hamilton has a bookstore, and I have a banner that says Kirkland Alumni Authors. I think you have 2 spots now you can put your books in. So thank you so much for being here, Abby.
Thank you, Joe, for doing this, and thank you to all the readers. I was just thinking, I only spent 2 years at Kirkland, but it was where I took my first poetry workshop. And so it's an important place to me. I just have a few poems. The first one is
sort of relevant for our time. It's called Barn Swallow. Shit streaks off the glass, and the swallow shrieks from a near tree. To see the eggs or the chicks, whichever's in the nest, on closer view, two nests side by side, how to keep close and away. Much of my book, Reliquary, is about one of my brothers who unfortunately died. And this poem is about him, brother. Because he can't tell his own story, may he never sleep another night in jail. May he never shiver heroin sweat, flea bitten, rib broken. Because he forgot that we walked with our dog. May he never forget the blue spotted salamanders we found in muddy banks, or how we swung by the rope into those rough waves. May he sing all night, dream of a sunflower woman, and let me forgive him, brother and consolation, though he dealt me a bad hand and the price rose. Let me not forget him, brother and sorrow, returned from prison those 5 years, engulfing him like a rubber suit, his cheerless eyes pondering me, my every fortune. I want to read this life poem after the death poem. I'm married to a man who comes from Sri Lanka, and this poem takes place right after we visited there for our honeymoon. His family still lived there. Sri Lanka. Newly wedded, we borrowed 2 Schwinns from the rest house and rode into the jungle. He hurried ahead on the road like a moon wandering in a cold sky. I was in his country for the first time. He sped on, his white shirt aglow. I tried to ignore the young soldiers lifting their rifles, the monkeys in trees throwing stones. A water buffalo turned its head as we passed the reservoir where women wash their hair. Stone pillars elbowed from weeds, and the sun flamed out. We circled the bo tree, grown from a sapling of Buddha's tree, another transplant. Its branches draped with flags, roots half buried by incense ash and lottery stubs. Hundreds of years ago, a monk carved these words on a rock to his beloved. Talk to me gently of your heart, impenetrable. I seek you in the monk's arcane verse, the improbable evidence of things I long to see, like those who hold oil lamps to light the road. Let's see. Just 2 more. They're short. This poem is called Fable. Oh, my children, the ant has a boulder in its mouth. Pale white ant rushes with a potato chip that fell yesterday from our table. I was like that once, moving rapidly, taking food home, bearing the weight because an ant is a lever, its body a physics. The weight of the chip is nothing to it. O wonders of the world, I am nothing compared to the work. And I'll just end with this one poem, which I think is appropriate since we're all Kirkies, called Dear X Chromosome. Dear X Chromosome, I have the sense we are alone. Found in ordinary cells, the extra X makes the woman, makes heart, breast, womb. Why there's all this space inside me, I don't know. Kidney, pancreas, stomach, spleen are 100,000 miles of veins, another universe unknown. It takes 3 days to reach our moon. Despite knowing we may be alone, my arms and legs outstretch, I keep trying to solve for X. Ancient mothers live inside this X. Despite the space inside me, X chromosome, mothership, mitochondria live inside this X. Everything beautiful is far away and unknown. I own the ancient mother X, the message from my deep space, X repeating in our rocket ship. Thanks. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I just love hearing all of your fabulous voices. And I think, Emily, are you going to be able to kind of funnel a few questions to us?
No, we didn't have questions as much as a lot of emotion and praise, but there were a few that I wanted to highlight. I know that, is Melanie Sutherland still on? Yes. She has her parents with her who were on the Kirkland Parents Council. So I thought it would be fun to visit with them quickly.
Just my mom is here with me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but that's all. I just wanted to share that she lives with me and she's right here behind me.
I love that.
And you wave, she's waving. They're all waving back to me.
Hey, Mel.
Thank you for being on the
Hey, Barbara.
board or the council. Thank you.
And Jane had a great comment about remembering Liz's father from the poem. Let me see if I can unmute. It's hard to find everyone. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I know.
Sure. But I wanted to share that comment as well. Is there anyone else that had comments they would like to share with the group?
I wanted to mention, Emily, that you have a beautiful backdrop, and I'm wondering if everybody knows what it is.
So I actually took this photo this morning. I took, my children love playing on the Kirkland side of campus. So we were riding our bikes and I thought it would be fun to take a photo of what it looks like this morning so that I can share it with you all this afternoon.
What is it?
It's
Oh,
the
I'm sorry.
Kirkland Gate.
It's a gate.
Yes, it's the Kirkland Gate, but I realized that I'm not so good with photos and the top part is cut out, but
That looks good.
it's the gate that's outside of KJ on campus.
Nice.
Lori, maybe you could mention how it came to be, or maybe someone else who had some role in it.
That is the Kirkland Gate. And it is something that was created by one of the women at Kirkland. And that's something that we look forward to sharing with everybody at the next All Kirkland in 2021, information on that. I think it's a story that we will all find quite heartwarming.
Great. Good. Thank you. I'm talking.
Can I mention another event that's coming up that some or all of you might be interested in? And that is, we're hosting a celebration. Bruce Muirhead is retiring this year from a zillion years of teaching, first at Kirkland and then at Hamilton. And on the evening of June 4th, we're going to host a Zoom celebration. We're asking people to come with something to toast him with. There'll be a short program of people talking about some memories of Bruce, and he and his wife will both be there. And you'll be able to leave messages for him via chat, but you will all be getting some sort of invitation through the Kirkland Alumni Association list that Lori Rydell maintains.
Yes, so if you're on the Hamilton listserv, you get things anyway. And if you're not, please get me your email to me so that I can keep you in touch with the things that are going on the Hill for us today and now. It's wonderful how we all stay together. This reading today has been so lovely. Hearing the words flow, I could definitely smell the raisin bread. Never have I had that as good again. It was just such a wonderful memory. So thank you. Thank you, Joe, for pulling all of this together. Thank you, everybody, for getting on board and listening. And Joe?
Joe, where'd you go?
I was just gonna say, again, how much I appreciated that everybody did this so quickly. I just asked a few people and they were willing to do this. And I also think I was thinking as I was listening, the reason I was getting goosebumps is some of you, I'm not sure if I was in workshops with all of you. I know I wasn't in workshops with Gwynn and Nancy, but I feel like I was, or at least I've heard your work before, but then I realized, oh, that was 40 or 50 years ago. That's a little eerie to me, but I hear it as though we're all still in our 20s or teens. And I just so enjoyed hearing how you've sustained your creativity all these years. I mean, I think some of us are being way more productive than we ever thought we'd be at this stage of our lives, but I think it's a wonderful testament that we still write and publish and share our work. And how great that you could share it with like 70 Kirklandish people, Kirkland fans, I guess we'd say, for everyone.
And we should also give a shout out to all of our wonderful teachers we were able to connect with through the years also. Michael Burkhardt, Tess Gallagher, Bill Rosenfeld, and all of the others.
Denise Levertov,
Right.
Naomi Lazard.
Right.
I mean, we were lucky.
Very.
Joe, I hope that in the next round, you will present some of your poetry.
Right.
I've put myself first, yes. I will read in the second one. I don't know really, you know, I haven't quite set up that schedule, but I definitely will be doing it. I will. Thank you for asking this. And by the way, thank you. I scrolled, I can't see everybody, so I scrolled ahead and I see so many people who were in Lost Orchard on this call. How cool. So, I saw a few of you. I don't even know if I've met all of you, but I saw a few people. So thank you. Thank you.
Joe and Emily, would there be a way to save the chat so that we could read it later?
Absolutely. I will send it to you. I'll save it.
Oh, good, because I lost mine entirely at some point. So.
It was too hard to follow. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
This was such an amazing event, and I just want to thank everybody for doing this. And those poems just like really entered my body. I don't know, something about it was so lovely. Thank you so much for everybody who read.
Great, great. Thank you.
Glad to see you, Katie.
Thank you.
My classmate. All right, I don't know. Does anybody else have anything? Or we're right on time, which is thoroughly crazy for Kirkland graduates. I don't know how we're doing this.
I would like to say something.
All right, Wendy, go for it.
Yeah, I've been attending a lot of the other events that Hamilton has been hosting, and I made the comment that in the couple of sessions I attended, I was the only Kirky. So to be able to sit amongst my sisters, I have no words. Thank you.
Agreed.
Yeah, there aren't that many of us. Right. I mean, there are.
But we should show up in 2021. There are in fact many of us if we all show up.
Okay. Well said.
When will you start the next reading, or when will you schedule more readings, Joe?
I think we just decided that's going to be Tuesday, June 23rd, and I'm going to try it again. I know 4:30 is not great for. I was writing a fourth grader passage about a half an hour ago. So I have to work too, but I want to make sure. I'm going to try to get, if some of you remember Nina Bogan, a fabulous poet who lives in France. She's lived there for years and years, and she went to Kirkland, so she's hopefully going to be able to join us. That's why I keep making these at a weird time. but I think it kind of worked. I mean, I noticed there are about 70 of us here, so. And we'll see after that. I think someone else might have some ideas. I know Isabel's got a whole bunch of nonfiction writers who are probably champing at the bit. So I'll let other people come up with some ideas for the future.
I just want to chime in for a second. I don't know most of you, but I just wanted to say that 3 years out of graduating in the charter class, I ended up teaching a course in poetry as I took over for a teacher out in a private school in Utah. And I know some of my confidence of even agreeing to do that in addition to short story and some other sections was just all the freedom and creativity that came with being a graduate of Kirkland College.
Nice. Thank you.
I mean, it's kind of funny.
And Joe, just a special shout out and thank you to you again for all your effort for really keeping Kirkland alive.
Well, thank you, Vicki. I'll tell you, this was a lot easier to do today than doing Lost Orchard, though, I have to tell you. I think the only reason I could do this, I have a new book coming out, but it's been delayed. It should have been out now, and I should have been focused on that, but it won't come out till the fall. So this actually is great that I could find time to even just be emailing you. But thank you. It's, I mean, I think as Abby said, my first writing workshop, I was writing as a teenager, but it was at Kirkland. So you all have such a special place in my heart, not just because I remember your work and you're, like I said, you're still writing. So it's a pleasure to bring you all together.
Thank
you. And hearing more from all of you, I know. So.
You've always been so supportive.
Hey, Jane. Hi. So this is also a little reunion. Jane and Gwynn and Nancy and I'm forgetting the other person who went with us, Maria, who's not probably on the call here, or the Zoom. We all went to AWP a few years ago and had did a panel discussion about Kirkland and Lost Orchard. So I feel like I haven't seen you since then, but
Seattle, right?
In Seattle. That was pretty awesome. That was pretty amazing.
Great.
Anyway, it's been so great to see you all. I don't want to keep everybody on the Zoom call unless you, I don't know, what's the cutoff, Sharon?
You can go for hours, Joe.
I'm worried about it. I feel hungry. I don't know. Time for dinner.
Yeah.
No, it's really, I think also maybe some of you can think about a panel of some type, maybe for the all Kirkland reunion. Not so much about the creative writing, and of course my interest is always the poetry, but I'm looking at Barbara Burson, and she's became an editor, and we learned so many things that we carried on in our professional adult lives that, I'm sure we could do something about that. I don't know.
Sure.
I don't know what exactly.
Definitely.
I will think about it.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Joe, I just wanted to mention Susan Bickford is going to do one of our next upcoming book talks, and I wonder if she just tell us what we have in store. You have to unmute.
Yeah. No, it took me a couple seconds to get there. Yeah, well, I've had 2 books out. If those of you are not familiar, they're thrillers. And the first one was nominated for Left Coast Crime Best Debut Novel, which was great. And then a huge surprise, the second one was nominated for an Edgar this last January. I didn't win, but that's the way it goes. And and they're both set in Central New York. I made up a county for the second one. First one I sort of disguised, the names and so forth. And then the second one I thought, so I made up a county called Oriska. Oriska means place of nettles in Mohawk. And so a lot of mischief takes place in Ariska County, I can tell you that. So I've been doing talks lately around, genre fiction, why do you do it? What do you get out of it? And how do you, there's a lot of commonalities and tropes and memes that are repetitive, and yet they have to also be fresh. And how do you conform to certain standards and yet not, or still have things be fresh and interesting? So I've been talking a lot about what's the difference between a mystery and a thriller, different subgenres, like Never Kill a Cat. If you write cozies, you just never, never. And things like that. So it'll be, and then with some examples of how you do it, at least how I tried to do it in the books.
Interesting.
So, Susan, should we be reading a book before we come, or just listening to the process?
I don't write series, so you can actually read either one first, or second, or as your only. There's something always about a first book that is just very, very special, I think. But on the other hand, certainly love the second one. And the second one, I think, is a little bit more, I can really see myself maturing as a writer. But it doesn't really matter which order you'll read them in, and I will be referencing both of them when I talk.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, I wanted to do a shout out for Selma Burkham, another one of our great teachers.
Oh, yeah.
Remember? Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
I see her sometimes. She lives in San Francisco. She was down in San Jose, teaching for a long time, and then moved to a retirement community in San Francisco. And I've been seeing her off and on pretty regularly, but not for about a year and a half or so. And I've sent her some emails and have not heard back. But I do hope she will respond at some point. And
good. Thank you. Thanks.
Susan, where are you?
I live in Mountain View, California.
I know where that is.
Yeah.
Oh, Oakland.
The South Bay.
Wendy's in Oakland and I'm in Sacramento.
Woo!
Right, and
West
Gwynn's up
Coast.
there in Sonoma.
Oh, nice.
Sebastopol. Yeah.
Yeah,
Who's in
Sebastopol.
Sonoma?
Sebastopol in Sonoma County.
So I meant
Who's in
that. Yes.
Sebastopol?
Me.
Gwynn.
Gwynn.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we
I'll
should
come see you, Gwynn. I have cousins in Sebastopol.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, come see us when
I
you
have a
can.
son in Long Beach. He's unemployed. If anyone has a job for a great writer.
Oh.
Went to Reed College.
Oh, really?
I'm sure there will find,
Steve
there are
Jobs.
things around. So
Great editor. Yeah.
What does he write, your son in Long Beach?
What does my kid write? He's been editing and writing, not poetry or fiction, but he's just, he's 1,000 times better. He's been editing my work since he was 12. Really good. Seriously. So just a plug for the unemployed,
And I was going to mention that Nancy, of course, we were not at Kirkland together at the same time, but I grew up in Fayetteville, and I think Nancy grew up in Fayetteville, right? She's still on? Or maybe she dropped off.
How do I find Lynn, who just was talking? I'm trying to find Lynn. She lives in Sebastopol. Lynn, somebody.
Gwynn.
I'm trying to find you. Sorry, I didn't realize I was not muted.
This is Sharon. I'm just going to say at this point, I think we should officially close and thank our readers. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's been a wonderful afternoon. And I'm happy to stay on if anyone wants to just keep chatting. So we won't stop the program, but we will stop the recording so you can speak freely. And one more plug for if you wanted to put a note for Sam Babbitt, we're going to share this recording, and then we're going to also do in the chat, we'll share that with him. So if you wanted to send a message to Sam, please do.